Just like any other representation, fat and curvy representation is such an important part of romance. Today, we're talking with Aimee of Curvy Girls Read Romance on why it's important for us to have this representation and some incredible recommendations for you based on what genre you enjoy most. We'll also be sure to have a link to that full list in the show notes and the description if you are looking for any of those recommendations. Hi, Aimee. I'm so excited to have you on. And you are
Thank
the
you.
face behind Curvy Girls Read Romance. When I started following your account, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, we need to be friends. This is going to be great. So if you could start by telling everyone a bit about your reading journey, especially as your adult reading journey goes.
I found my way to romance in grad school because I just desperately needed to read something that was not a textbook or a journal article or something like that. So I'm a historian, so I started with like historical mystery, and then from there went to like historical romance, which will always be like one of my favorites. I realized it's not for everybody. But then from there, I went into contemporary and paranormal. And for like the month of October, I did a bunch of monster romance readings, which was really fun.
Nice.
But then, as I was reading with historicals in particular, there are very few plus size heroines in historicals, especially. And I think what I found more like with traditionally published authors, they'll tend to have one per series. One, like just for that representation, there's one plus size person per series, especially with traditionally published authors. It was hard to find them. I wanted to see myself represented in the books that I was reading. And so I started seeking out specifically plus size heroines to start. And now I'll read anybody who's like a plus size protagonist. That sort of led to my like jump out of historical and into contemporary just because there are so few. I was able to compile like a list of some historical authors who are starting to do this more. But yeah, that's sort of how that came to be. And then as I started to compile this list on my Goodreads shelves and everything, I thought, well, if I'm looking for this, someone else must be looking for this. So that's when I started the Bookstagram account and just went from there.
I think that plus size representation is so important, especially with how societally plus
Mhm.
size folks are viewed. I recently was editing a client's podcast and I wanted to throw this woman out. Just like, nope, this episode is terrible because she
Yeah.
had a lot of like opinions on people's weight and if you're not sleeping well at night or if you're not the weight that you want to be, then it's probably because of your mindset. And I was like, oh no, you're the
Yeah.
problem, lady.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so we see a lot of that and a lot of opinions about
Yeah.
what someone looks like being a representation of their healthiness. And I'm using bunny ears here for people who are
Right.
listening and can't see me. And I
Right.
think that it's such a huge problem. So I think that it is important that we see plus size characters in love, being loved, not despite their weight or despite what they look like, but also
Right.
because of just who they are and their love interests, seeing the roles and being like, I love all of it. And I love that
Right.
we're seeing that a lot more in the romances, at least the ones I've been reading, where there's a plus size character. You can, from one of the other characters' point of view, they'll mention, I can see the
Mhm.
stretch marks on her legs and I just want to
Yes.
kiss all up on them. And I'm just like, yes,
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. What are your thoughts on all of that?
I absolutely agree. And I think there's also like the fat phobia and fat shaming is so deeply entrenched in society and in romance as well. I did a post a few months back about how I go about and asking other people how they go about finding specifically plus sized heroines or protagonists in general. I said, I really like when someone does an Instagram post with the microtropes and I can see it, that it says plus size heroine or it'll say husky hero or something like that. But then at the same time, I would get frustrated, like, this shouldn't have to be singled out because it is about more than weight. And so it's like writing this fine line between making it easier to find these characters and then not wanting them to have to be singled out by their weight. And then it sort of went into this discussion of plus size rep not taking place on covers. So even if the romance is about a plus size hero or heroine, the cover doesn't reflect that whatsoever. And so I did some posts like, all of these are books with plus size heroines, but none of them are reflected on the covers. And I did other ones later about here are ones that actually have plus size rep. And like you said, oh my God, she has stretch marks and you can, like, it's just so nice to be represented on that. I remember the first cover that I absolutely fell in love with was Curves for Days by Laura Moore, something like that. And it just has this beautiful curvaceous woman on the front and it's just her and she looks just so confident and it was just like it was the first one that I really was like, "Oh my god, this representation is awesome." So now every few months I'll do posts like here are more authors who are doing this plus size rep on their covers. And from there, people were saying, okay, I go to Romance.io and I'll look up a specific author. And then you can select heroine and curvy heroine. And that's a way to do it, but it's also sometimes not as accurate. I'm not sure what their process is, but like I've gotten recs from there and then they weren't plus sized. I also sometimes message the authors directly and I'm like, "Hey, is this a plus size heroine?" And they'll let me know, "Oh, she's mid-sized," or, "This one's not, but I have this book that is," which is really helpful. And most authors are really great with that. Then I had one author who wrote a plus size character in an upcoming release. Okay, she looked plus sized on the cover. And so I wanted to write to verify because none of her promotional materials specified that this was a plus size character. And so I wrote and I was saying, I'm just wondering if this is a plus size character. I'd like to feature it if so. And she said, I've been told not to market this as plus sized, but this character she is more reflective of realistic body types. And, like, I thanked her and I did a post on it later. I didn't name her because I wasn't trying to put someone on blast. I wanted to
Right.
talk about, like, the discourse. And I was like, I'm not gonna end up reading this book, but I thought about this all afternoon, and it's incredibly frustrating to see that even if someone is trying to write this, they feel like it needs to be concealed. It was just so disheartening, but at the same time, when I did that post, so many authors came forward and they're like, "I write unapologetically fat women, plus size women, curvy women, however," or, "I write plus size men, I write these husky heroes." And it was just like the discourse we had in that comment section all day. It made me feel so much better after feeling so shitty after that, like, really disheartening interaction. So finding these types of protagonists, you have to do quite a bit of work for it unless someone is willing to put it on their marketing, which we're learning, it feels like one step forward, two steps back. So we see some authors are really into body positivity and others, they'll do it almost like, well, to me, it felt like tokenism. I'm going to write this person and she's plus size, but we're not going to say anything about that. It's just really difficult trying to navigate that sometimes. So, yeah.
Yeah, I know that I've seen very similarly with books that maybe have what look like a browner person on there, or
Mhm.
maybe it's showing them as being, or they'll describe them as more olive tone. And I'm like, what ethnicity are they? Like, I feel like I
Right.
need more
Olive doesn't
information
mean
here.
anything.
Not at all. That could be Italian, like, or
Right.
Greek. Like, what does it mean?
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think that I love that you approach the author, and that's something that I've been doing as well. Like, hey, I want to promote BIPOC authors. Feel free to say you don't want to answer or you don't feel comfortable answering 100%. But I would like to do a Latinx post, and I believe you're Latinx, so please let me know if that's accurate or inaccurate. Like, I want to make sure that I represent you properly.
Right.
Everyone I have reached out to has been more than welcoming of saying, "Oh, yes, I am," or "I do identify that as that," or I identify as this, and I don't identify as Latinx." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." That helps me
Right.
be able to, 1, promote them in the right way and not do a disservice to my followers of misrepresenting these people. But then also I
Absolutely.
think that it's so important as readers and as people who want to read more diversely that we do follow the accounts that are taking the time and effort to actually give a
Yes.
shit about this stuff, right? Like your account, like our account, where we are going
Right.
the extra step to say, yes, even though these covers might not show that these characters are curvy, or maybe it's a colorful floral
Right.
cover, or they're illustrated characters, so we don't say cartoon characters, illustrated
Right.
characters, then these are actually curvy, mid-size, or plus-size women, or husky heroes,
Right.
or whatever it is, right?
Right.
It's good that we have people that are doing the work, and I think that it gives even less of an excuse for people who are like, "Oh, I can't find anything." You literally just need to search. It's
Yeah,
all
there
there.
are ways of finding. When it comes to, like, terminology, I feel fine using the term fat. I do not see the word fat as a bad thing, as an insult whatsoever. And so I try to integrate that a little bit more in my posts. Most people use plus size, and I'm fine with doing that. The term curvy, I love it, but it can be misused because a lot of
Mm,
times authors will say she had curves in all the right places and they, like, came into the tiniest waist. So,
yep.
you're like, "Okay, this is also not very realistic."
No.
Are we talking about Dolly Parton here? I mean, it's just the idea of, like, curves in all the right places. So curvy is something that can be absolutely misused, and I fully realized that when I chose my name for the Instagram profile, but more people identified with that. But I also think we have to be really careful with it. And now that we're starting to see a little bit more representation of plus size men, we have to figure out what men are comfortable being called because the idea of husky heroes that can have that same idea of curvy, like what
Mhm.
does that mean? Are men going to want to be called plus size? I've been such a feminist for so long and I don't always be like, what do the men think on this? But it is the representation of those characters in the stories, so obviously that makes sense, but trying to condition ourselves to figure out what is gonna be, like, the appropriate terminology in that sense too, so,
Oh, that's so
yeah.
interesting. Yeah, I even think about, so I have boys and
Mhm.
they are not in the husky men's section or the husky boys section. But when I think of like even my brothers, as they were growing up, you would have the difference of the size 12 kids or the 12 size husky kids, and where
Right.
it has a little more room to it, right? And so that might be
Mhm.
a term that they're like, that seems plus for women's, those are the plus
Right.
sizes, those are the husky sizes, and so it could have a negative connotation, and that's not even something that I've even considered, so thank you for bringing that. And yeah, I think that it's really important that we're considering all of these things. Mid-size, we're specifically talking in US sizes, right? I
Right.
understand that there are
Yes.
other sizes in other countries that you're like, wait, what are you even talking about? But
Right.
like the fact that mid-size can be anything from a 10, which makes no sense to me at all,
Oh my god.
to a 16 or an 18.
Right.
Like, I feel like 18, then you start getting into the more fat sizes or the plus sizes where people think,
Right.
oh, mid-size is anywhere from 10 to 16, 18, and then 18 and up
Mhm.
is more plus size. And it's like, okay, who made those rules? First of all.
Yeah. There's no, like, definition, and so everybody's scale is different. It's completely arbitrary, just the entire sys.
Yeah, I can even think of one book I read. I believe it was a book by Alexandra House. She writes a lot of plus size women and curvy women into her stories. I absolutely love that. And
Yeah.
she mentioned, I believe she mentioned the size as a 22. And in my head, I was like, I'm trying to think of like people in my life that I maybe know are a size 22 to be able to imagine that. I am personally like a 16, 18, imagining this character, but I was like, who cares? She is
Yeah.
getting dick down. Let's keep going. Like,
Yeah.
Even care. Like, like she
And
is living her best life.
that's another thing, like, I love when the size is mentioned and it's high double digits, but at the same time, I'm like, "Shouldn't have to do this." CeCe Monroe, she just had a dark romance release, and she's like, "This is a size 26 heroine." And I'm like, "Great, get it. I love it." Like,
Yes.
I love it just for reading purposes, it helps me visualize better, but I love when they do that, I really do. But yes, I read one that was, like, labeled as a curvy heroine, and then they described her measurements, and she was 5'9", 160 pounds. That's not plus size, that's not curvy, that's just a
Oh,
that's just like a standard
wow.
person.
Yes. To give reference, I am about
Yeah,
220 and I am 5'5", and I'm a size
okay.
16-ish. So, like, to give people a
Right.
scale, that's 4 inches taller than I am,
Yeah.
and,
You
a lot of pounds less than I am.
I'm around, like, 215, 220, and then I'm a size 18, and I'm 5'4". So, I'm thinking, "Oh my god, 160 pounds, and you're 5'9"? This is, like, real thin."
Yes, and then you have to think too about, like, shape, right? That's something that, for me personally, has changed so much, like, weight versus shape. As I've gone through 2 pregnancies, a lot more of my fat is in my belly and in my butt and my
Mhm.
hips. My legs are thick too, like, but then my upper body's like, "Alright, we're fine." My arms
Yeah.
aren't very fatty. I've got some rolls on my back, but, like, I don't know, it's
Right.
my weight has been so different, like, when I was, like, thinking about after my first pregnancy and being like 170 and being like, "Oh my god, I'm getting so fat," and then being like, "Man, I
Yes.
am healthy. I have birthed children. Like, I have done
Yes.
so much with this body, and
Yes.
this body is powerful." And then being active versus being like, "I need to lose weight," or being strong versus being like, "I need
Right.
to lose weight." And so I think, one, there's, like, so many different ways that we could take this conversation, but
Yeah.
bringing it back to, like, reading and romance, I think that it's so important that these characters are described and that we don't have to fluff over what they look like or if they are
Right.
curvy or are plus size, that we don't have to say, "Curves in all the right places," just to make everybody happy. Like, no.
Right. No,
Let's
no.
get away with that.
I started highlighting every time an author mentions stretch marks in a book, and I have a whole shelf now on Goodreads of all these romances that mention stretch marks, and it just makes me so happy. Like, I remember the first time I read that was mentioned, and I was like, "Oh my god, this
Yep.
is incredible." And it's something so small, but it just like, that representation matters. That just made my whole day.
Yes. Oh, it's so good. So, what do you think that some authors maybe could do better, or we as readers could request from authors to do better in this realm?
Actually, I was just thinking about this last night. Somebody had done a post on Instagram of like free paranormal romances that had plus size characters. And so I went and downloaded a bunch of them. And I read one of them, and it was written in 2014. I actually read it last night. I DNF'd it because I've noticed that plus size characters written in the early 2000s and plus size characters
Oh,
written now are incredibly different. So this was 2014 and it was a paranormal romance, like it's a MFM and they find their fated mate and one of them is shocked that he is attracted to this plus size woman and keeps telling her that she is so not his type. And he's like, "I keep waiting to be turned off by you." This is
oh
only
God.
10 years old. It was horrifying. And so I DNF'd it. It was just not for me. But now finding authors who do this is easier because authors who are like devoted to this cause, they do it proudly. When I did that post that I mentioned a few weeks ago, LM Drew commented and she goes, "I write fat women getting railed and it's fantastic. My sales don't suffer because of it."
Yes. Isn't that her
It's
tagline, I believe?
yes. Oh, I love her so much.
It's the unapologetic that we love. Right,
Yes,
like, even
yes,
unapologetic mid-size too, I think is really good too because I think the representation of the
yeah,
average woman is about
yes,
mid-size, it is the
right,
16 to 18 size, like, that is
right,
pretty normal, and we're just not seeing that reflected in a lot of media, and so to see that reflected even looking at okay, we could talk about Bridgerton season 2 and
mhm,
how societally everybody was like, "Oh my goodness, a fat woman being the love
yes,
interest. We never see this." Or
right,
there was an Instagram personality, I can't think of his account right now, but he was sarcastically saying, "Wow, we've never seen a fat person and a thin person on media before. That's crazy." And then he just rolled through all of these like pictures of a fat male main character and a very
mhm,
skinny or attractive female main character. And he was like, "Wow, we've never
right,
seen that before. I cannot believe it." And it just kept going. And there were like 15 different cartoon shows, real people shows, like
mhm,
all of this stuff where it's a fat man in love with a skinny woman, but nobody bats an
right,
eye. And he was like, "Why
right,
is this foundationally a big deal, guys? It's not
yeah,
anything new. Get over it."
yeah, like, nobody in history was fat? Going back to Bridgerton, just the idea that there was just the one fat person in the entire social circle.
Oh my god. Yes. Yes, guys, come on. But
Yeah,
that is something that I don't think that people talk about enough is people having to eat whatever was available to them. They didn't have
yeah,
grocery stores. They had whatever they could make, whatever they could
right,
access. No one had a Harris teeter to be able to like go get the groceries that the organic foods. Like,
right,
no. It
that's
was
not a
whatever
thing.
you had is what you had.
Right,
And then you've got the rich people getting all the foods, and the poor people I'm like,
mhm,
"Look, we got potatoes. That's all we got, and so we are gonna eat these potatoes. That's it." Like,
yeah,
to
exactly.
imagine that fat people is only now, well, no, that is not at
No,
all how it
that's
works.
insanity. So I'm a historian, that's my trade. There's a notion that if you were fat, historically, it meant you were wealthy. And sure, this is, likely true if you have more access to more food, sure. But the idea that there were no fat poor people, no plump poor people throughout history is also insanity.
For real. Like, everybody who's poor just has no food or
Yeah.
like, what?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense either. Yeah, they just don't understand how this works.
Just think about it. If the foods you have access to are only grains, and that's the cheapest food too, and that's all you're going to be able to eat, that's going to affect you.
Depending on where you live in the world, what you have access to, like, there's so
Yeah.
many different elements to this that it is silly that we would look at history and be like, "Nope, it was just one black or white statement that encompasses everybody."
Yeah.
It's like, it's not how it works at all, and that's not how it works now. So, looking even deeper than plus size is really important that we understand that and this is something that I feel like I've been having a lot of conversations about lately, is that we as humans are
Hmm.
so multifaceted, and I think that as women we tend to
Hmm.
be viewed very one-sided. You're a mother, you're a sister, you're a daughter, you're a woman in society, right? Like, there's only the one view that we tend to have or that people tend to see us as, and then ergo, we see ourselves as if we haven't done
Hmm.
work to, like, really sit with ourselves and see what makes us ourselves, and so multifaceted as human beings beyond just being, "Oh, these characters are fat." There's so many more experiences to these people. How do you feel that plus size romances specifically go beyond just focusing on the weight and giving even more representation to humanity as a society and multifaceted people?
I just finished reading Kelly Reynolds, her new release, Pitches Be Crazy. It's baseball romance, the second one in her Rose City Roasters series. And it's a bi hero and a bi heroine, and they're both just, they have no intention of having children, exploring this notion of being child free by choice. I loved that, and I every time I read one of Kelly Reynolds' books, I tell her that I wish I could live in the world she wrote because she does such a good job of emphasizing mental health. She does such a good job of repping neurodiversity and sexuality, and I just absolutely love the worlds that she writes. All of her books right now, I believe, have plus size women. I also recently read Settle Meyer's Beyond the Bright Lights. It wasn't published this year, but I read it this year. And it was the most impactful representation of grief that I've ever read.
Mm.
So the protagonist is a plus size woman in a small town, and she had this great love story with her fiance, and then he gets cancer and passes away, and she's obviously devastated. And then they're going to make a movie about what happened in his life because he was like this football star and then became this advocate for cancer research. And she falls in love with the actor who comes to town to play her fiance. And it's just this journey through grief. I sobbed through it. It's also this huge representation of addiction because the actor's an addict. And these stories have so much more than just weight. Like, it was a heavy read, but it was so beautifully done, and he is so obsessed with her. It's a reverse age gap also, and he is absolutely gone for her from the moment they meet. He, like, loves her stretch marks, and she's so soft, and she's so lush, and so, yes, there is that aspect of, yes, she's a plus size woman, and let's acknowledge it, but also there's all this other stuff going on. Settlemyer just knocks me off my feet all the time. Right now, for me, she's, like, the most versatile because she's got contemporary, she just did some monster romances, she's got a dark romance with rival contract killers that's so good. And so she's, like, dabbling in everything, and she's so good. And then Sloane Spencer was another one who I'm absolutely obsessed with lately. It's a MMF romance, and so we get some bi rep, and one of the heroes is just absolutely trying to connect with his identity because he was adopted as a child. He's Korean, I believe, but raised by white people, and he wants to find his cultural identity, and his parents are really offended by it. There's also the other male protagonist has PTSD. And then the female heroine, yes, she's plus size, but she's also dealing with grief over a miscarriage. And so there's huge mental health rep in that. And I just think that, especially books published within the last, maybe not 10 years after what I read last night, but maybe the last 5 years, we're getting so much depth in terms of representation and just lived experiences. And I think that's what it is. It's highlighting, yes, we get to understand what these lived experiences of plus size people are. Like, if an author mentions boob sweat, I'm there. If she, mentions stretch marks, or she mentions laying down and your boobs go to the side, it's just realistic. But then you're also getting these other lived experiences that, like, yes, fat people are fat, but they're also people. That is not the
Yeah.
sum of their identity. I just have been really pleased with authors who are doing this today.
I could not agree enough. And I think that when you have things like grief and addiction and mental health rep and so much
Mhm.
more, I think that it really does allow us to have more of an empathy. And I'm finding this has to be the through line through season one because a lot of these conversations I'm having are, it's not, oh, wow, it's romance, and even though it's romance, you're getting this. It's
Mhm.
because it's romance, we're getting all of this depth, and we're getting so much more to these characters than just, "Oh, they fall in love and everything's fine." Like, no.
Right.
These authors are putting in so much effort to create
Mhm.
a well-rounded story that really
Yes.
does tackle real issues, and I think can allow us as readers, whether you're fat or not, get
Mhm.
a better empathy for others. And I did mention this on another episode. I don't know when it's going live, but I know
Mhm.
myself when I started reading romance, I would just read it for the smut because we read smut. That's just what I wanted to
Yeah, why
read. And
not?
I was also right, exactly. And I was also like, after my second pregnancy, my libido was really low. And
Right.
that helped me a lot. I did not want to
Yeah.
take any type of medications from my doctor. I didn't want to use any creams. I just wanted to be naturally more lubricated. This worked for me, and that's okay, right? And so,
Yeah,
like, then
absolutely.
it got deeper. I'm learning so much of these characters, and when I got the autism diagnosis for my son, being like, well, I've read books with autistic main characters that are close on the spectrum to where he is. I know what he might be going through. I might be able to empathize a lot better to be able to bring him back to center when he feels like he's spiraling, or find ways
Right.
that I can work with him because I've seen this in books. And wait a minute, I feel like that sometimes maybe I need to go get a, a check with the doctor to see
Yeah.
if maybe I am on the spectrum as well, right? Like it can teach us
Right.
so much of not just ourselves, but also the people around us. I can have that empathy and I can see it from outside of my own lens beyond just, "Oh, they're fat and they have boob sweat." Here, totally get it.
Right.
But, like, there's so much more to these
Exactly.
characters that we can get, and so much that we as readers can get from romance that can honestly heal us in ways that I don't think we even realized when we started reading.
Like you, I started for the smut. My antidepressant, anti-anxiety is an SSRI, and it just absolutely kills your sex drive. And hey, look,
Yeah.
free material. And so, yeah, that's where it started. Then you start, looking for more story. I recently read Katie Dugan's From the Start. She's a new indie author. She has 2 books out right now. But From the Start was her first one. Have you read this one? Oh,
Yes, I love that one. It's so good.
Nick gets this, like, autistic diagnosis as an adult, and it's been recommended that I go get an autism diagnosis as an adult, just trying to relate to it from that perspective, but then the first person she tells is this, like, childhood enemy that she had, and he is just so sweet to her, and he's so, like, accommodating and accepting of her autism, and she wants sex lessons because she wants to be able to, like, have sex with people in a way that she doesn't wanna be too much for people, and him telling her that she's not too much, and he oh my god, he makes the sex syllabus is the best thing ever.
Yeah.
For their lessons
Should
is
know
my
he's a
very favorite
professor
part.
too. So,
He is
like,
a
yes.
professor. Yeah. But and then she always has a weighted blanket, but she loves when he will be her weighted blanket, and it was these stories that people are writing now, they just it's so good. It's so good. So much better than, I guess, what we were getting 10 years ago.
Yes. Yeah. Oh man. It's so true. And I mean I love it. I'm here for it. It's such an important direction that we're taking for sure. What are some other
Yeah,
authors that you're like really enjoying right now?
I did a list on
I
our
saw
on
your
our
list and I was
at-home.
like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I love all of this."
Okay, so I did a really long one, but I will try to go through by section. So if we start with sports romance, I guess we'll start with sports romance. So as I mentioned, Kelly Reynolds has the Rose City Roasters series. In both of those that are out so far, we have plus size protagonists, also bi rep and queer rep, really good. And then Mary Warren has the Glendale Magic series. It's a hockey series. And Mary Warren runs Fat Girls in Fiction, which is a huge collective on a much more bigger scale than what I do of highlighting fat girls in fiction, obviously. Amy Award has the Cocky Kingman series. It's a football romance series, all plus size protagonists. The second one is like a Taylor and Travis, like a retelling, but with a plus size heroine. And then Sloane Spencer's she started the Rugby Lover series. She's working on the second one of that right now. And the first one was one of my favorite reads of this whole year. It's a Friends to Lovers and a surprise pregnancy one. And then S.J. Tilley has the Sleep series, which is so good. That's a hockey one. In terms of contemporaries, I love Talia Hibbert's The Brown Sisters series. They're all three plus-size heroines. And then Kayla Gross, who's dubbed the Queen of Smut, she writes the hottest romances. She's got the Cowboys of Nighthawk series, but then she also has a couple of novellas that came out this year and last year that are insanely hot. Oh, Kelsey Haast has her Hello series that's like small town, all plus size heroines. Mary Warren, who did the hockey series, also has her Mystic Falls series. Leonor Solis, who is a Latine writer. I'm half Mexican, so I'm always looking for Latine rep in my reads also, but she has the Cozy Latine Billionaire series. If you're looking for like shorter reads, I like to use them as palate cleansers between longer reads. Kat Baxter is my absolute favorite for that. Mia Brody's another one too. I will say for Mia Brody, the covers are never plus size rep,
Hmm.
which can be frustrating. And then Anna P. writes plus size South Asian characters. They're so good. Georgina Kirsten, she's a BIPOC author with BIPOC heroines and heroes. And she, in her More to Love book, she's got It's a Male Romance with a plus size hero. Danielle Allen's that came out over the summer, her Curvy Girl Summer. It's part of her Curve series. There are more coming. Also BIPOC author and heroine there. So yeah, those are really good ones. Evie Mitchell is huge for diversity and she writes shorter reads. Her book, Thunder Thighs, was one of the first plus size rep ones I read. And this gorgeous Viking looking gunner just absolutely is obsessed with Ella. And he's just gone for her immediately. And I loved seeing it. Julia Wolf also has a lot of plus size heroines. P.S. You're Intolerable is probably one of my all time favorite reads. I don't know if you've read that one, but it's so good.
I have not. No, I'll have to check it out for sure.
Yeah, so you get like a neurodiverse hero. It's a boss employee romance, and she's pregnant, trying to hide it to get the job. It's not his, obviously, but he like takes claim over this baby, and it's so good. Actually, one of my posts that has gotten the most likes is the breastfeeding heroines and their heroes who benefit. And that's a big one. In terms of historical romance, it is harder. It's been hardest for me because I don't know of any authors in historical who write specifically plus size heroines. So anybody that I've put has plus size heroines, but they're not like exclusively like you find a lot with monster romance or paranormal romance or contemporary. Sarah MacLean has quite a few, like Nine Rules to Break, Road Not Taken, which is one of my favorites, Knockout, Brayson and the Beast. Felicity Niven also has Bed Me Barren and Voluptuous. Nicola Davidson, hands down best historic erotica. So good. And
Look,
there's a
I don't
new,
even like
yeah,
historical. And I'm like,
I know.
yes.
Yeah. They just released one like a week ago that's like it's a femdom MMF. So good. So yeah, there's also a new series of novellas that just finished releasing called Curves and Cravats, and it's all historical novellas, all with plus size heroines and different authors. So that's a good one. Should I keep going?
Yes. For anyone
Okay.
taking notes, it's okay. We will try to list as many of these, and we'll also make sure that we link to your roundup posts in the comments for
Yeah.
anyone who's,
Okay.
wait, I need more. Even if I have to hyperlink to this list, y'all will get the list.
Okay. For monster romance, Meg Rhodes is a new indie author. She did just released called Her Sweet Orc, and it's the first in a series, and it's basically like Halloween Town, but with sexy times.
Oh,
And
yes,
it was
please.
fantastic. Yeah. Emily Antoinette is another one who has a lot of plus size heroines. She has a Minotaur romance, Escaping the Friend Zone. That was hot.
I have that on my TBR. Like it's in my
Yeah.
Kindle right now.
Yeah. That was my first Minotaur romance. And I was like, why did I like this? But I really liked it. And then there's also a series of novellas that just finished releasing as well called the Fated Date series. So it's multi author and it's a mix of monster and paranormal romances. So like L.M. Drew, Settle Meyer, Who else had the Lizzie Strong had one in there. So yes, lots of novellas for monster and paranormal readers. For Omegaverse, I just finished an arc of Amelia Emerson's A Pack for Autumn. Oh my gosh. The series is called Cozyverse, and it is a cozy romance, but it's a very hot cozy romance. So good.
Love it.
I can't recommend it enough. It comes out, I think, November 13th. That's such a good one. And then in terms of paranormal, Stephanie Kazau's, she started the Midwest Monster series earlier this year, and there is not a week that has gone by that I have not cried over one specific thing that happened on this book. And I message her about it all the time, and she's very patient with me. But she has the next one coming out soon. It like challenges this notion of fated dates and where does personal autonomy come into it. So it's not just like a regular shifter romance. And we get this female alpha leading a female led pack, and she's this gorgeous plus size wolf shifter. Awesome. LM Drew has 2 shifter series. She's got the shifters of Garurv, I believe is how it's pronounced, and it's wolf shifters, but then she also has the shifters of Bear Valley, and those are bears, obviously. Sam Crescent writes a lot of plus size heroines, and she's got the Alpha Shifters collection. Oh, and Kate C. Wells also, you always have to prepare yourself to read a Kate C. Wells romance. Her 5-pack series, a couple of them have plus size heroines. His Curvy Rejected Mate is so good. So those are my very quick recs.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. So many good ones in there. But I think literally if you just take one from one of the categories that you're like, yes, I love these, start there. You'll be fine. Where are some other places that you are finding that you're able to? We mentioned romance.io, which is kind of iffy because we don't really know how their algorithm works or how they're categorizing
Right.
things or who's giving that information. But I think
Right.
following accounts like yourself, like Fat Girls in Fiction, ones that are
Mhm.
specifically promoting fat and curvy and plus size main characters, I think is such an
Mhm.
important part of making sure that we're seeing that in our feed. So often we're like, oh, I can't find it. Or I hear people say, I can't find that. Or I can't
Right.
find anything with this type of representation. You literally just need to follow creators who are talking about this. And you're going to have
Yeah.
so many recommendations. You have a ton of roundups. But where are some, maybe 1 or 2 places that you recommend that people also go to?
It's difficult, but if you can find these creators on Goodreads, like if you look at my Goodreads, I have 4 pages of, like, specific lists, and so anytime I'll mark something that says stretch marks, or I'll mark something that says MMF, mark something that says MMF, or, gray sweatpants is another bookshelf I have, and so finding those users on Goodreads and looking at their shelves, if they do, multiple shelves, that's really helpful. I've not delved into Book Talk because I I keep reading a lot of drama about it.
Same.
Yeah, no, I can't say whether that's a good place to find that. Honestly, for me, again, following accounts like Minor Fat Girls in Fiction, Books with Love Handles is a place where I get a lot of my recs. That's another Instagram user, so Bookstagram has been really useful for that. I message the authors is, one way that I find it. Most of them, especially the indie authors, are really quick to respond. And I will say that I really have better luck finding not only plus size rep, but positive plus size rep from those indie authors because, they're not necessarily writing to the requirements of a traditional publishing company or being encouraged not to market something as plus size.
Yeah.
So, yeah, finding those indie authors. Fat Girls in Fiction doesn't just have her Instagram page, she's got a whole website that's a really useful place for that as well. Other podcasts, Fated Mates has a few episodes that highlight curvy girls. That's another one. I can't say much for like Threads or X because I don't do that much. But yeah, Bookstagram has been where it's at for me and deep diving Goodreads as well. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, those are so perfect. Yeah. If anyone who knows me or has heard listen to this podcast knows I don't do book talk. I can't. It's just
No.
they're too young for me over there, I think. And I'm just I'm
Yeah.
not interested in arguing about why I read smut to people.
Right.
So no thank you.
Yeah. And I just keep hearing that there's so much like drama with certain book talk things. I have no I got other stuff to do.
I got a life and
So
smut
those
to read. Thank
yeah.
you.
Yeah, exactly. Better use of your time.
Amy, this has been so much fun, and you've given us so many
Much
different
for having me.
recommendations. Yes, and ways that we can get out there and read some curvy or fat romances. Where can people
Yes.
find you? We did mention your handle, but where can people find you, hang out with you, send you a DM, and tell you thank you for all of these recommendations?
Yeah, so I'm at Curvy Girls Read Romance, all just one word, no punctuation, on Instagram and on Goodreads. And then I also have there's a BookBub account too. It's just the exact same thing. So yeah, that's where I am.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Amy. This has been so much
Thank you
fun.
for having me.